Are you ready to find out how to actually scale you? This is the Scale You podcast, where every single week we bring out a ton of fantastic experts on how they've been able to scale themselves. Whether we're in season 1, we were focused on entrepreneurship. Season 2, we were focused on digital nomads. Season 3 were people with multiple businesses, which was a fun ride. And of course, now we are coming into season 4, where we're focused and interviewing a ton of amazing authors who've published their books and be able to scale their ideas, their business themselves through their books. I am your host, Lacaba. I'm the co-founder and CEO of 2XU Executive Services here in the Philippines. And if you're ready to ditch the grind, let's go over and scale you. So in the last couple of seasons of the Scale You podcast, I like putting the first episode to be a little bit just me interviewing myself. So answering questions basically that I've been asked as kind of a preview for all of the other fantastic interviews that's going to come along for this season. And if you guys missed it, if you guys didn't see it at all, I don't know why, but I published my book, The Scale You book, basically. So we have the Scale You podcast and we have the Scale You book. So it is now out on Amazon, and it's basically for like the writing process for it. It took me 3 years to actually go ahead and write this book, or finish writing this book. And it was basically this whole journey of first figuring out what I wanted to write about, which obviously was helping other people delegate basically parts of themselves, parts of their business to an executive assistant, which is a big part of what this book is all about. And it took me that long to also write, because I remember when I first started writing basically the Scale You book, I was really going through it in life. I remember it was September 2021 when I started really writing it. I was going through this program in Debt Global, basically. And actually, it's funny enough, one of the first few guests that we have on this podcast owns basically that program that I went through. It was the Book Builder program, and they basically help people break down their ideas, what their thoughts are, how they want to structure their book into this whole workshop. It was like 9 weeks. So I was going through that, but I was going through that as well at the same year that, one, I just got into a motorcycle accident. 2, my mom passed away that year as well. And 3, I literally started writing the book around the time that I got broken up with after like being in a relationship with someone for 10 years. So I was going through it, and I needed that distraction, and I needed a little bit of the break from what my reality looked like. So Scale You was basically that platform for me to be able to just sit in a coffee shop, not think of anything else but my book. And I remember documenting a few bits and start of that process, just because like I wanted to keep myself accountable of writing. I think I was aiming to write 800 to 1,000 words a day, and I would basically go to this coffee shop, this Starbucks basically near us, and because it was still the pandemic, a lot of places were open where it was outside, so I basically had this spot right outside Starbucks that I would just sit. I would order the same English breakfast tea basically every single morning. It won't have anything else. I was basically trying to fast for until basically I finished writing the first 1,000 words of that book. And I remember that process as, again, a little bit of, 1, healing, because of course I was going through a lot, and 2, a really good way to get things out of my head. And at that time, 2XU was only about 2 years old. So we only had a few clients then. We haven't scaled to, the size that we are now. And at that time, I wasn't even really fully actively pushing on sales. I was basically just taking whoever found content on YouTube. And I was like, no, I have to shift this. I have to change this. So of course, since then, we've shifted a ton of what we do into XU. But it was basically through the Scale You book that I was able to really explore, I guess is the best word, what I've learned in the last, at that point, 2 years of being in the outsourcing business. I've now been in it for 5. So basically, that was 2021, 2020, 2023, I basically kept telling myself like I should probably like finish writing this book. I should probably get to the end of this. So I've been kind of doing a few chapters here and there. And the cool thing is with the Book Builder program, one of the things it taught us, like, hey, you probably already have content for the book. So I kept doing that. I kept making content on YouTube, and I would then grab the transcription from that YouTube video of mine and then turn it into one of the chapters of the book. And I actually did that a couple times. And when AI came out in 2022, I was like, oh, I have changed a lot of different things on the book. So I actually went back into it like midway of 2022, where there was like a lot of developments. We were teaching a lot of our own executive assistants at 2XU how to use AI for or with their clients. And then about 2023, I was almost done in 2023 with my book. And I think I had like 2 more chapters left. And around that time, I was then learning how to scale myself through a team. So it wasn't just me and my executive assistant anymore. I now built basically a managerial team around or in 2XU to support not just for our executive assistants, but also for our clients. So it wasn't just me and someone else anymore. It was me and the team. So of course, I had to add that into the book, or I just used it as an additional reason to kind of keep prolonging writing the book. And then finally in 2024, I was confident enough to like, okay, this is done. This is good. Like, I don't want to keep prolonging. I don't want to keep procrastinating. I went to the sister company, basically that the publishing company that I worked with for like, I think 4 or 5 years. Five years of my life, basically, I worked in that publishing company. And I was like, hey, so you guys know how you have your nonfiction books, can I submit mine? Can you just review it and let me know if it's good, or if it sucks and you guys will never publish or want to hear from me ever again? So that was basically how I got my publisher. I was doing that very, very bad pitch of myself and telling them it's okay to fail me. And essentially they set the date around November of like, hey, let's go ahead and publish it in 2025. And I'm like, that's brilliant. It's perfect, And I had this in my head, at least. It was a funny idea of like, let's launch it on February 28th because, we just had the leap year the year before. It was published on the 28th of February. So that was kind of the how we set that up. Now, the funny thing is by around mid-January, I totally forgot that I said that we were going to launch it in February. And by the time that their marketing team came back to me like, hey, this is now the final kind of proof of the book. Can you go through it? And by the way, we're going to start doing the marketing campaign for the book launch by February 1. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I like, totally forgot that I set that arbitrary date with them. So what ended up happening is, of course, with AI and my fantastic assistant, we went ahead and kind of basically created a book launch plan. And of course, since I did work in the publishing industry for years, I it was kind of a little bit like riding a wobbly bike of like knowing how to market a book, how to push it, how to use like the right book description. And I did like the book cover contest, which there were a ton of amazing entries. Even my own amazing, fantastic editor and graphic artist into XU submitted his own. And funny enough, I had this concept for the cover, I don't know for how long. So I have on my iPad when I was originally writing the book, one of the things we were doing in the book builder program was to basically draw like, hey, how do you want the cover of the book to look like? And I kind of had this idea, except for like, if you're listening to this, I'm holding up my book. Basically, it was the idea of having the scale U and then the U kind of launching off, like scaling yourself. But I couldn't make it work. And when I gave those instructions to our graphic team, they did amazingly. But I had this itch at the back of my head, like, okay, I wanted to make this. So technically, honestly, and this is something that you guys will hear probably only from here, is I made the cover for this book. Mostly because a little bit of the like I said, I had this concept, I had this idea, and honestly, I just didn't say like, hey, I made this cover, this wins. I did go ahead and run it on a book poll. We did have a couple of people who did go ahead and vote, and it was really neck and neck with this cover and one other cover. And it was when I tested it on YouTube, I think, and it went over the edge. Like this cover went over the edge. Like I put the poll up on like Facebook. I did the poll on I think I did it at one point on TikTok even, because I was just trying to test and see which cover people like. And that cover won, and I'm really happy and really like, I would have been super happy if like some other cover also won. It was really just a marketing test. So that basically, that's how that panned out. And by February 28th, I was officially a published author. The book basically got into #1 of new releases on Amazon. At a certain point, it was on the top 10 books of like outsourcing. I wasn't able to take a screenshot. I probably should have. I was just too excited. And then, basically since then, it's been kind of the fun experience of having this big business card basically that I could walk around, and then like when I'm introducing myself to people, I'm insufferable. I'm basically like, oh yeah, here's my book, like, oh, you can check out my book. And it's funny, is like I remember being 10, 11, writing fiction stories, and that was kind of how I started with writing, and thinking to myself like, oh, I'll never write a nonfiction book. See, I love writing fiction or reading fiction also so much. Like I can't even imagine what it would be like if I wrote nonfiction books. And here we are, lo and behold, here we are. So it's my first nonfiction book. I do have a fiction book out there on Amazon. I don't recommend you check it out, mostly because it was a rambling of a 16, 17-year-old. It's kind of like listening to Taylor Swift's debut or even the Speak Now album when she was like really, really young. And yes, I did kind of compare myself to Taylor Swift. Anyway, so basically the concept and the idea, keep getting distracted. The concept and idea for the Scale You book is the last now basically 5 years, because I went back and I did edit a couple of stuff in it. In the last 5 years of what I've learned on outsourcing, on delegation, on things that a lot of our clients, the mistakes that they made as well when it came to working with their virtual assistant, and the systems that we built into XU since then. So I've put in a lot of different ways they can break down, knowing what to delegate, what not to delegate. I go into how to build systems, and essentially how to build systems with your assistant, and then of course how to hire. Like I actually go into detail of like what type of job description you should write, what kind of tests you should send to someone who's an applicant for the role. So I go into pretty in depth. You can basically, if you read the book, you can kind of already start your own virtual assistant business, and I don't mind. Like go ahead and start one, because that's growing basically more of this economy. So that's essentially what Scale You is if you want to go ahead and figure out how to aptly scale your time, scale what you do, where it's not just you in your business. You have someone who helps you execute a lot of the ideas you have in your head, which when you're an entrepreneur, you have a bajillion and 10 ideas in your head, and basically how to make sure that it actually gets done and how it gets done right. Now, honestly, one of the coolest things of now saying that I'm a published author is the part where I can literally reference my own book in a lot of different things. So if someone says like, oh, I don't know how to scale my business, I'll like, oh, go to like chapter, I'm actually going into the book right now, chapter, chapter 3, it's on page 28. I go into in detail like how to find your 80-20 principle, which is, listing out the 10 things maybe that you're doing in a day, finding what are the 2 things that you can do, and then delegating the rest. So it's figuring out what that looks like for you in your business. Or it could be, signs to look out for when hiring the right person is on page 101. So that's kind of a cool flex that I like, as I do like doing now that I do have my book, especially like in, physically holding it as well and not just having it on Kindle. And the biggest lesson I've really learn from it is, one, I should have done it years ago. I should have not procrastinated and waited 4 years officially to publish the book. And then at the same time, it's funny, it's like, it's also take your time. Like when I was writing the book, like I said, I should have published earlier, but at the same time, I learned so much basically in the last 4 years of writing that book. Like I said, I started with just, this is how you hire an assistant, and it's evolved to, this is how you do it with AI, and then it's evolved into, this is how you do it with a team. Because my business itself has grown so much in the last, of course, 5 years, that I've been able to, anytime that basically I learned a new lesson or found a new thing, I was able to put into that book, which is a cool kind of a grab, or a cool thing that I could just like, oh, I can reference my own book as well if I get lost, because sometimes you also get lost in your own weeds. So that is essentially what the Scale You book is about. Again, feel free to grab it on Amazon, grab it on your Kindle, and it's essentially, like I said, it's a lot of love put into writing, put into the book, And I hope you guys are able to leave a review on Amazon. Of course, please do. And that is basically what a lot of the ideas that we're sharing for season 4 of the Scale You podcast, where we are exploring more and more people who basically put a lot of love and ideas into their book to share it with a lot of people and to be able to hopefully get to the right people as well. And if you guys are excited, if you guys are looking forward to it, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of the future episodes of the Scale You podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to hit that like button. So hopefully you guys like me doing a little bit of a self-interview preview of every single season that we're going on. I'm super excited that Scale You podcast basically has hit 1 year. I'm super thankful and grateful for you guys. And yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. And remember that small steps matters. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.